and I've got our marketing coordinator, Liz Tones, with us. And since this is being recorded live, all attendees are going to be placed on mute. So if you have any questions or comments, please type them up in the chat box, and our moderator, Liz, will address them as needed. We welcome everyone to our first webinar in this series about millennials, and we appreciate you taking a few minutes out of your busy schedule to learn about this new audience of consumers and how they can help your pharmacy grow. FLAVORx recently went through a rebranding, and we identified how we fit in today's retail pharmacy. In our research, we identified that FLAVORx service is no longer just about making bad-tasting medicine taste better, but what now resonates with our customers most is that we're positioned to help pharmacies deliver a better pharmacy experience and a less stressful medicine-taking experience for both parents and children. We're going to spend the next 15 to 20 minutes talking about who the millennials are, why you need them, and how to attract them to your store. So if you take a second to think about who your current customer base is, I'm guessing a good percentage of people listening today opened their pharmacy from scratch several years ago. And at that time, you had a business plan, you hit the streets, and you busted your tail to attract new customers. But at some point in time, your script levels got to a volume that would support and sustain your overall business. So you've most likely kept those loyal customers happy over the years, and you probably know most of them by name today. But over time, most pharmacy owners get caught up working in their business versus on their business. When you're filling a couple hundred scripts per day, you don't always have the time to take a step back and look at the big picture and where your business is heading tomorrow. So if you took a second to generalize your patient population today, ask yourself if your customer base skews toward adult and geriatric populations. In general, this is the case for independent pharmacy owners, and to borrow a phrase that we heard quite a bit over the last weekend at the PDS show, no change equals no change. Without a doubt, this aging customer base is high dollar and high valued customers, but there's a couple of challenges ahead given that those customers are also highly targeted by the competition. While you may be able to retain your existing customer base on personal relationships and reputation alone, it's challenging to attract new adult and geriatric customers to your storefront in this competitive landscape. And there's also a few direct and indirect threats to that business. Some headwinds that you might be facing in retaining your existing customer base include preferred networks, mail order, and if your store's not based in Florida or Arizona already, you could be faced with customer bases retiring to different parts of the country. It also goes without mention that we lose customers to the inevitable RX stopper over time. But what can we do now to get ahead of these challenges around customer retention and start to secure new customers for the next generation of your business? We're going to help you rethink your business for a moment because we currently find ourselves at an exciting crossroads where opportunity and timing intersect once every generation or so. For the first time ever, the baby boomers are no longer the biggest generation of consumers in this country. So you've probably heard the term millennial or echo boomers before, but this generation is now the largest group of consumers in U.S. history, and we want you to think about setting up your pharmacy to grow and thrive over the next 20 years by attracting, engaging, and delighting these millennial customers to deliver the best health and wellness experience possible. No matter what you've heard, read, or seen about this generation, please remember one thing, that you need them right now. We're going to take a second to review the different generational definitions to get a better understanding of who these target audiences are. For the last 50 years, retailers and marketers alike have followed the baby boomer generation as the group holding the greatest purchasing power throughout the country. But for the first time ever, that group of consumers are both outnumbered and outspent by millennials. As I mentioned earlier, your existing customer bases can most likely be summarized between the baby boom and silent generations, which are located at the bottom of this graph, and those two audiences make up over 100 million consumers over the age of 50. While Generation X has over 66 million consumers, the millennials present an awesome opportunity representing over 75 million consumers today, but that number is actually growing. So if you look at this top line here in the chart, the millennial is kind of a dark greenish color, and that number is going to be growing over the next 20 years from 75 million to over 81 million. You might be asking yourself, how can more people be born back in 1985? Well, we verified they don't have DeLoreans and going back to the future to have more babies, but what's actually reshaping this generation is immigration. So we're expecting about 6 million new consumers coming into the country in this age generation. We're going to address the immigration opportunity a little bit later in this presentation. So who are the millennials? Well, they were the first generation to grow up in a digital world, and they're very proficient in technology. The millennial generation are influencers and eager to find a company, product, and service to become loyal to. They're very family-oriented, but that doesn't always mean they relate to a two-parent family image, since they're twice as likely to be single today. They are, however, ready to pamper their children just the way they were growing up. So you're going to need to show them that you care, you're willing to understand, accept, and embrace the values of that generation. There's a couple other things that I wanted to share on this slide, including some of the events that have happened over the last 10 or 15 years to shape some of their consumer behavior purchases. Between the dot-com crash of the 2000s, Enron, oil spills, and banking collapses, they're a little bit skeptical of big business and more likely to think global and shop local. This group of consumers is also very conscious of giving back to causes that matter to them and looking to support products, services, and retailers that reinvest back into their community. All of these factors set up very favorably for the independent-owned pharmacy that choose to recognize this group of consumers. More specifically in the millennial audience are the millennial moms. That's really who we're going to be targeting. At 22%, millennial moms are both the oldest and most affluent of the groups. They spend lots of time online, and they love to offer their own while reading others' opinions. When it comes to money, they value health, travel, and pampering their children, and they're willing to splurge on purchases in those categories. They'll pay whatever it takes for the latest Juice Cleanse, family-friendly cruise, or Mommy and Me developmental class. And they believe that you can't put a price on health, baby's happiness, or the family's future. We're actually seeing services like prescription flavoring becoming much more visible on social media networks, since 90% of moms are sharing those stories, both positive and negative. Since medicine time can be very stressful for both mom and the child, they oftentimes turn to their social networks of friends and family for advice. Make it a goal that these moms are talking about your pharmacy and not your competitors. So now that you guys know a little bit more about who the millennials are and why you need them, here comes the fun part of how to attract them to your store. When I last ask a lot of independents about their business, they oftentimes say that we don't have pediatrics in our area anymore, or they don't see many kids in general. Almost always they are wrong. If there's a school within 10 miles of your pharmacy, there are kids living in the area, and the truth of the matter is they just don't have a reason to come through your front doors. Please don't make assumptions on local demand based solely on what's happening in your store. If you owned a deli and people stopped coming in, you wouldn't tell us that everyone in your neighborhood stopped eating, would you? Well, if you want to see different results, you need to start doing things differently, and that's the purpose of sharing these next few ideas to attract new customers to your store. A great testimonial to illustrate this is from a pharmacy in Brooklyn that I spoke to about 2 or 3 weeks ago. This pharmacy's been in business for over 40 years, and it was actually purchased from a previous owner back in 2007. And it's no surprise that they had a Walgreens on the same block as them, and every once in a while they had heard a random request for flavoring from moms every once in a while, but they never made the decision to actually carry the service. Well, when Walgreens and Duane Reade had merged a few years back, this particular Walgreens closed due to the proximity of another store, and immediately after that happened, moms started flooding this independent pharmacy asking for flavoring. And so the light bulb kind of went off for this particular pharmacy owner, knowing that the demand was always there, but they just didn't have a reason to go to his store. So the moral of that story is just don't let your brain fool you based on what you're seeing in your store. There is a hidden demand in the community for this younger audience, but you need to make the decision to change your approach if you want to change your outcomes. One of the first orders of business, if you want to attract this millennial audience, is to start by improving your online presence, because the millennial generation first shops for products and services online. Through search engines, mostly Google, and personal networks of friends and family like Facebook, Pinterest, Twitter, Instagram, and Yelp, those are your first opportunities to make a name for your business. Most importantly, your site needs to be mobile friendly. We just saw a stat this weekend that 52% of all Google traffic today is from a mobile device, and that number is only going to continue to grow. So it's no secret the millennial generation is glued to their mobile devices, so much in fact that towns are now having to pass legislation to ban the multitasking of walking and texting in an effort to save them from their own demise. So I would like to give you guys a quick idea for an exercise to do after this demo, or after this webinar, to see how a millennial would get their first impression of your pharmacy. So after this webinar, take out your smartphone, type the name of your town and the word pharmacy, and then hit search. Just take note of where you show up in that search. If it's not near the top of the first page, you basically don't exist to the millennials. You're a virtual unicorn. Their parents told them about you once, but they were never proven to be real. Millennials rely on search engine optimization to filter out the most relevant leads for their search, and they rarely go beyond the first page. When your phone is still out, another item to check on is going to be your star ratings. Now, we all know star ratings in pharmacy are tied to patient outcomes, but this particular star rating is going to help improve pharmacy incomes. If you have less than 4 stars in your reviews, you're going to have a tough time attracting new customers based on online search. Another quick scenario that happened to us last week at the PDS show in Orlando was, we spent 12 hours in this really high-energy conference talking to some great independent pharmacy owners, and afterwards we were just exhausted. And my colleagues and I decided we were going to go try and find a sushi restaurant for dinner. So Liz, our marketing coordinator, being a millennial and very tech-savvy, went on to Yelp and looked up some reviews for sushi restaurants. And one of the locations that we found had, I think, about a 3.5 or 4 stars, and one of the ratings was from a guy named Bill in Omaha, and his review was simply put, really great sushi. So that was enough to convince us to go to this particular restaurant, and about 15 minutes later, when a very mediocre, at best, sushi dinner arrived at our table, I asked Liz, have you ever met Bill from Omaha, and do you really know what his standards are when he reviewed really great sushi in Orlando? I've only spent a few different trips in Omaha for work, but I never took notice of sushi restaurants with lines out the door as a point of reference. So the fact of the matter is that regardless if Bill from Omaha knows a California roll from a rainbow roll, for some reason his 5-star review meant something to a consumer that was looking for answers and advice. So with that being said, online customer reviews are incredibly important to your business and oftentimes represent the first impression someone makes of your business. The toughest part is that a consumer is much more likely to complain about a bad product or service than they are to share a positive one. If you do happen to have an off day and you find a less than favorable review online about your business, try to track down that customer, apologize, make things right, because turning a bad experience into a good one can be quite memorable. So you guys have been in business for years, if not decades, and you have a loyal following of customers. So there's no need to be afraid to ask them to share a positive review. The best time to ask a customer for a review is right after you know you just exceeded their expectations. So if you go out of your way to personally deliver a refill to a neighbor that just had surgery and couldn't drive, or if you surprised a mom by offering a free personalized flavoring for her child's medicine, stuff like that is a great opportunity to just kindly ask if they go online and give you a quick review and make it easy for them to do so. Most importantly, I want to mention that the importance of hiring the proper brand ambassadors, aka your pharmacy staff, you want to make sure that they're committed to the same standards of delivering an excellent customer experience for each guest. Every single individual customer interaction has the chance to help or hurt these star ratings. The more positive reviews you have, the better your star ratings, and we all know how important that is for your business. So the importance of a referral, millennial moms are decision influencers, and they're more likely than other moms to provide opinions and recommendations. And one of the statistics on an earlier slide showed that 90% of millennial moms are sharing their retail stories. So making your pharmacy present on social media is a must, and we're seeing a lot more of our pharmacy customers engaging with their followers while providing relevant content to that audience. Millennial moms are very active on social media, more than any other mom, and they spend an average of 17.5 hours per week on their social network, and that's basically a part-time job in of itself. They're 35% more likely to share content, and I think that's something that we all agree has a tremendous opportunity to get your pharmacy mentioned. So once we address our online presence of our pharmacy, let's take a look at how we can improve our visibility in the community. If you take a quick look at the logos up top, so many independent pharmacies still tag their storefront with a very traditional and somewhat dated logo, which is found on the left side of the screen. As most younger customers are looking for the latest and greatest innovation, they may be a little bit turned off by presenting a look that is dated and several years old. So notice the little evolution of the traditional mortar and pestle logo that we put on here that still blends the roots of pharmacy but gives it a little bit of a modern twist. As much as you may value the tradition of your existing logo, don't be afraid to adjust with the times or you might be left behind. Another thing that we want to address is the idea of window shopping. What does your storefront and your front window say about your brand? If your front window is packed with wheelchairs, canes, and adult diapers, good luck attracting anyone under 65 through your doors. More importantly, when you think of branding your pharmacy, don't limit the discussion to just your logo and signage, as your actual brand is comprised of everything inside the pharmacy, including the products, services, convenience, and personal relationships that differentiate you from the competition. So this slide's kind of a freebie. I'm going to call it idea 2B, since our title was only 5 ways to attract millennials, but I really wanted to include this in today's webinar. Not only is it important to consider updating the outside look of your store, but this is also a great time to look at the inside of your store as well. The old metric of sales or revenue per square foot is dying, according to retail visionaries like Doug Stevens. Just about anything you carry in the front end of your store can be purchased online at a site like Amazon. So the new metric to survive and thrive in today's retail environment is how many experiences per square foot your store can deliver. One of the biggest trends in retail right now is customization and personalization. If you think about those Coke Freestyle machines where you can add 80 different flavors to your soda, you can personalize the label on your soda or beer or any other drink for that matter, and you can even choose the skin to put on your phone, your iPad, or your desktop. In pharmacy, there's an increasingly popular movement towards personalized medicine and pharmacogenomics, all the way down to something as simple as customizing the taste of a liquid medicine based on a child's favorite flavor. Since you're positioning yourself as an expert in health and wellness, think about what you can do to incorporate overall healthy lifestyle behaviors into your in-store experiences. Some of those ideas include weight loss, healthy eating, smoking cessation, and diabetes management. Most pharmacists are trying to shed the traditional image of standing behind a counter counting out pills. And each customer interaction is so vital because you're both valued and trusted as an expert, all while building long-term relationships with your customers. So take the time to interact with your customers and build trust and loyalty in your community. We've previewed some amazing technology over the last couple of weeks that's going to help you do this in the very near future. So you might be wondering why there's a picture of the Apple Store in the bottom left of this slide. I wanted to include that picture of a retailer that's one of the best in-store experiences, not just for millennials, but just for consumers in general. Most of you have probably been into an Apple Store, and they have featured stations that draw the customer in to actually experience hand-on the highlighted items while all the major inventory is stocked behind that back wall and out of sight. And it's no coincidence that a major drug chain recently hired their design consultants to update the look, feel, and flow of their own pharmacy experience in the same manner. So not saying that you have to totally redesign your pharmacy today, but just think about, you know, the look and feel compared to what you guys currently have today. So the next idea is going to be to partner up with local businesses. And if you don't have millennials in your stores today, then you don't have an audience to promote some of those services to. So if they're not finding you, you've got to go out and find them. Partnering up with other locally owned businesses is a great way to create a unified front to increase awareness together in your community. Does anyone know what a locally owned barbershop, a drive-through bank, and a pharmacy all have in common? All 3 of those retailers usually give kids a lollipop if they're good. So I'm now a dad of 2 young boys and recently realized that lollipops are still the best 5-cent rewards out there. And I've noticed a lot of local businesses in my community using this treat at the cash register to reward children for good behavior, all while creating a great customer experience for both the child and parent. So recently a light bulb went off in my head, and I was wondering if it was possible to have pharmacies teaming up with local businesses to attract new customers. So in one word, yes. All these retailers are drawing from a community of the same customer base, and this presents a great opportunity to cross-promote each other together. So if we can turn an everyday chore into something less stressful, or dare I say a positive experience, those are the types of experiences that are exactly what busy millennial moms and dads will remember and come back to for years to come. So one of our top independent pharmacy customers, it's called Atlantic Apothecary in Smyrna, Delaware, put this theory to the test. We shipped them several hundred FLAVORx sugar-free lollipops, and owner Kevin Musto actually made signs attached to a bowl of lollipops that said, "Courtesy of Atlantic Apothecary, let us flavor your child's next RX." They distributed those to local barbershops and banks that were willing to cross-promote the pharmacy. And sure enough, within a few weeks, the pharmacy noticed some new faces and families with young children walking through their doors. The bank and the barbershop both got free lollipops to give out, but the pharmacy got new customers for virtually free. Another pharmacy teamed up with a neighboring froyo store, and they were using our compliance charts to have kids track and not only take, but complete their medication. When they returned to the pharmacy, they would get a voucher for a free kids froyo with a purchase from an adult. And the great cross-promotion was that at that Froyo store, they actually had a sign up near their register saying, get your kids' RX filled at Park Pharmacy and receive your next Froyo free. As we stated earlier, the landscape of our country is drastically changing, and immigration is helping to further shape the millennial population. As of today, 1 in 3 babies being born in this country will be Hispanic, and 52% of all pediatrics in California are of Hispanic descent today. Locally owned businesses are a huge part of the Hispanic communities, and Latina moms value the relationships of their local businesses. Data shows that Latina moms are nurturing and will do whatever it takes to help make their kids more comfortable when they're sick, and they're willing to pay a premium for personalized services such as flavoring. One of the top flavoring pharmacies in the country is roughly 90% Medicaid, and it's located in a heavily Hispanic neighborhood. And in their peak cough and cold seasons, they're flavoring over 1,000 times a month, and they're actually charging $3 cash for the service. The good thing with our service and how we can help you is that all of our materials are going to be bilingual, and it's very important to have marketing collateral that's going to be in their native language. That shows them that you care. The last strategy that we're going to talk about today is winning the pet and winning the family. A couple quick stats to share with you that 62% of all U.S. households have pets today, and 78% of those pet owners consider their pet a member of the family. Now, when it comes to medicating their pets, 90% of dog owners and 75% of cat owners have indicated that routine checkups and preventative care are either very or somewhat important, but they've also identified that medicating those pets are oftentimes a struggle. Getting down to the millennial audience specifically, 76% of them have identified themselves as more likely to splurge on an item for their pet than they would for themselves. And then when you get to the social media, 66% on Facebook, 38% on Twitter, and 34% on Instagram have social media for their pet. By collaborating with local veterinarians, you should aim to establish a true partnership in which your pharmacy becomes an extension of their clinic, focusing only on the RXs that the clinic does not have the time or inventory to fulfill themselves. Over time, you can expect to grow this percentage of your business coming your way, and you may even convert those pet owners to start filling their own prescriptions at your store. So that really sums up the first series of this webinar on millennials. Getting those customers into your door for the first time is the hard part. Keeping them delighted and loyal for years to come is up to you and your staff, and we'll dig into that a bit deeper with those strategies on our next webinar. We can open it up to see if anyone has any questions, and before we do that, I'd just like to mention a couple quick takeaways. When this is done, do try looking up your pharmacy online, either on your phone or mobile search. Check out what people are saying about your store. You can also visit FLAVORx.com and check out some of the great resources available for download, including some great ebooks and blogs. And finally, please visit our LinkedIn group created just for independent pharmacy owners. We're going to be sharing best practices and strategies on a regular basis in between these webinars. And we want to thank you guys once again for taking time out of your busy days, and we hope you can implement some of these new strategies to build your business. So I'll turn it over to Liz and see if there's anything that you guys had questions about.
I did see a few questions. One of the questions is, can we get an outline of the topics covered? After this webinar ends, there will be a recording of this webinar being sent out to everybody, as well as kind of a summary of everything that was talked about. And that is pretty much everything.
All right, great. Well, thanks again for everyone's time. Hope you have a great day, and hope we can help you to grow and attract that millennial audience. Have a great day, everybody.